Well, we got another one. Another one that made it to 100. Doesn't happen too much these days now, does it? We've had plenty of them that came real close. I mean, what was it? Bush Sr. passed at 94. Barbara Bush, I think, was 92. I think Bob Dole was 95 or 96. President Carter made it to 100. A milestone right there. Wow, wow, wow. So, Jimmy Carter, as most of you know, was president from 1976 to 1980. It's a little bit of a shame that he didn't get a second term. It's whatever. But he did have some major accomplishments as president throughout his term. Now, before that, he was also a state senator. He was also the governor, I think, of Georgia. I've covered some of those accomplishments in another video of his, or another video that I did about him. So, one of his big things was he established the Department of Education in 1979. It was created as a cabinet level agency through the Department of Education Organization Act, which he signed into law in October of 1979. The department officially began operations in May of 1980. This move was part of Carter's commitment to improving education and elevating its importance at the federal level. It separated education related functions from the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, which then became the Department of Health and Human Services. Now, here's some other stuff. The Camp David Accords from 1978. He brokered a historic peace agreement between Egypt and Israel, leading to the signing of the Camp David Accords. This agreement resulted in a peace treaty between the two nations, marking a significant step towards stability in the Middle East. And yet, people called him weak, and they voted him out of office. Brilliant. Egypt became the first Arab country to recognize Israel, and Israel withdrew from the Sinai Peninsula. Human rights advocacy. President Carter made human rights a cornerstone of his foreign policy. He emphasized supporting democratic movements and condemning abuses worldwide, impacting U.S. relations with countries like South Africa, Argentina, and the Soviet Union. This advocacy influenced international norms and highlighted human rights and diplomacy. He's got stuff on energy policy, environmental protection. Environmental protection, he protected millions of acres of wilderness through the Alaska National Interest Lands Conservation Act of 1980, one of the most significant conservation achievements in U.S. history. This act expanded national parks, wildlife refuges, and national forests, safeguarding ecological treasures for future generations. Let's see. Healthcare and social initiatives. He expanded funding for public education and mental health services. He signed the National Health Planning and Resources Development Act to address healthcare disparities and improve rural healthcare access. Civil service reform. He modernized the federal workforce through the Civil Service Reform Act of 1978. This act improved efficiency and fairness in government employment, including protections against discrimination. He also supported the Equal Rights Amendment and advocated for gender equality and women's rights. He appointed record numbers of women and minorities to federal positions and the judiciary. See, if today's conservatives were alive back then, they would have called him woke for that. While Carter faced challenges, including the Iran hostage crisis and economic difficulties, his accomplishments in human rights, peace building, and environmental stewardship remain defining aspects of his presidency. Now, there's many more of his accomplishments. Like I said, I've talked about his stuff as governor and as state senator in another video. And also, let me reiterate, this guy was in his 90s building houses. I mean, of course, obviously he wasn't doing the work physically himself by that time, but just the idea that he wasn't even involved in that. I mean, who is doing that at age 94? It's like, dude, man. So, a lot of people who I've talked to that were, old enough to remember the time that he was president and, either before that or even right after that. I mean, most people, even today's generation, who will look back on some of those things and like they'll do the research and all that. I mean, it's basically a populist opinion or just like a universally known almost fact. I mean, this guy was just a really good person, and it didn't see anything about him that was divisive. Again, with that whole thing with the peace thing, I don't know why people thought he was weak for that, and even a lot of Democrats didn't vote for him in his reelection year. So I'm not really sure. I know there's a lot of detail to that I'm probably missing, but just based on those things alone, I mean, this was a pretty damn good guy. I mean, he was just a good person, and in my opinion, he will go down in history as one of America's best presidents ever. And I wish we had more with his heart and his mindset. So he made it to 100, and his legacy lives on. So thoughts and the heart goes out to his family. So other than that, I got a lot more stuff coming up. So subscribe to the YouTube, follow the Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all that. Comment below, like. Until next time.